Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Content Mix. I'm Carlota Pico, your host for today's show, and I'm excited to introduce Ksenia Ruffell, who is EMEA Marketing Manager at IDeaS Revenue Solutions, and she's also part of the advisory board at the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International. Welcome, Ksenia, and thank you so much for joining us today on the Content Mix.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Carlota. Thank you for having me today.
The pleasure is ours. Okay, Ksenia, so tell me a little bit about your background experience. How did you get to where you are today?
Yes, it's been a long journey in a way, and certainly marketing was not the career I intended it. But I started working in marketing almost 20 years ago, around the same time as I studied at uni. And by the time I finished uni, where I studied psychology, that was it. I was hooked. And fast forward 18 years, and I'm with IDeaS. I have been with IDeaS now for the last 5 years, and I'm very happy.
Okay, excellent. So you're a psychologist turned marketeer. Very interesting. Ksenia, tell me a little bit more about IDeaS Revenue Solutions. What is it?
Certainly. We are kind of a small company, I guess, in the overall in the big world out there, but we are quite big in the hospitality world. So we're actually the biggest provider of revenue management software and solutions, and we provide those solutions to hotels. Now, we're part of SaaS, which is the biggest analytics company in the world, and our solutions are powered by those analytics. IDeaS have been on the market for over 30 years, so that makes us probably the longest standing vendor in hospitality, and it's quite an achievement for any software organization. We have about 98% client retention rate, and again, I think that speaks for itself. And some of the biggest brands are our long-standing clients, such as Hilton, Mandarin Oriental, Radisson, and the list goes on.
Okay, very interesting. So spinning off of that response, how does a hospitality company keep its content relevant during a global pandemic that has forced many countries into lockdown?
Yes, you're just touching on a very painful subject here.
Sorry about that.
One that is inevitable, I guess. Interestingly, we noticed that our client and prospect engagement with sort of around content more than doubled this year over the last year. And, we're still in September and it's already more than double. So we must be doing something right. So back in March, when the pandemic took hold of Europe, we had to, as a company, sit down and really think hard about what we can do to help our clients and prospects. And apart from the obviously financial side of it and financial relief that we worked with to provide, we wanted to provide value, in terms of the content that we're pushing out there and appear genuine and authentic, which are our brand values of IDeaS, but without appearing too salesy or pushy or ignorant to everyone's situation. And it's quite sensitive, it's a fine line. So some of the content we offered was free revenue management foundation courses, and it was a free resource for people who wanted to take the time they don't usually have to brush up on their skills or maybe learn something new. So that's been very well received by our clients, and certainly we saw very good engagement from that. And we also work to produce a series of practical tips for hotels who are experiencing low demand, both from operational perspective and from adjusting their software system. So again, had really good feedback, and the hotels did find it useful. And another great piece of content that came out during the lockdown, and something that our company never did before, was a series of podcasts. So we have a fantastic person in the organization. His job title is Chief Evangelist, and it's a great job. And his name is Klaus Kohlmeier. So he was running the podcast, and the podcast is called Unconstrained Conversations. So basically, he sits down with some of the leading roles in hospitality organization, and they have a very frank and open conversation about anything really. So again, I think we are on 15th episode right now, and they've been very, very popular.
Very interesting. Well, I'll have to listen into your next episode as well. Sounds like a very enlightening type of podcast. And I also heard that you have a really interesting blog. Could you talk to me more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So blog is really, I'd say, one of our long-standing content pieces. And a couple of years ago, it won an award for being number one most popular blog in the hospitality industry. And that's something we're very proud of. And we blog very regularly, I would say, and it's very relevant. So the content is super fresh, and it's very much in line with what is happening, what we're feeling, and what we are talking to hotels and what hotels are talking to us about.
Okay, very interesting. Have you had to unlearn anything about marketing during these unstable times during the global pandemic?
Unlearn. I guess it probably, if you think that something is good, the project is good and will make a difference, it doesn't mean it will be the same, ring the same for your other teams and stakeholders. And I think that stands, whether it's pandemic or not pandemic, it's just stands at all times. I think especially I did feel that in the last 6 months.
What about any questions? Have you asked yourself any questions about the way that you're addressing your different audiences online during COVID-19, of course?
Yeah, absolutely. I work for in the hospitality industry, and that's the industry that's been affected the most. So it's hard not to ask yourself every day, what is happening to the industry, what is going to happen, how are we going to survive, and will we weather it, and will the industry thrive again? It's just one of the few. And as a company, are we in a good position to weather this? And what can we do to change? And how do we adjust our way of talking to our clients and prospects to still convey business whilst also being sympathetic? It's a very fine line.
Mm-hmm. Apart from IDeaS Revenue Solutions, do you have examples of other brands that have done a fantastic job at communicating with their audience during COVID-19 times?
Yeah, I could think of more than one. Ikea definitely being one of them. So I don't know if you've been following them, but they ran a campaign focusing on home improvements, and it was all about finding comfort in your own home. And I think that probably resonated well with people. And I'm sure, I don't know what their sales were like, but I'm sure that really helped. And some clothing and fitness brands I've seen, I can think of probably more than a dozen. Nike, Sweaty Betty, it was all about kind of fashionable comfort, and again, being in your home and being comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. Nike also did a fantastic job at relating with their audience, especially during the Black Lives Matter movement. They're really good at social communication. Okay, Ksenia, and now moving away from COVID-19, because it's a word that we all hate, and why touch upon it more than we already have? Let's talk a little bit about the experiences that have shaped you as a marketing professional. Could you zoom into what those experiences have looked like and why they've shaped you?
Absolutely. I would say my main experience that's still happening throughout my career, day in, day out, is working with global teams and learning about their different working styles and ethics and cultural differences. All of that, it just helps. It helped me to understand and appreciate the importance of adjusting your messaging for different audiences and the way how you communicate with different teams cross culturally, and the importance of keeping your ear to the ground and being aware of current affairs near and far, and being sympathetic to anything that can affect your brand and the perception of your brand.
Okay, spinning off of that response, Ksenia, obviously culture plays a huge role in what we do as human beings and in how we communicate with other human beings worldwide. What are a few best practices for running effective multi-language, large-scale marketing projects?
As I mentioned earlier, the biggest one for multi-language cross-cultural project would be, well, first of all, having the appreciation for the different markets that you're talking to. So, it's not just about being multi-language, it's also not just translating it, but also localizing it and adjusting the messaging to each market. So, having really your native speakers work with you, on those projects, that's very important and something I found really helped. It's about timing. So if you're a global organization, having that big project run and all in a coordinated and joint manner is very important. And I think generally, and it probably applies to all projects, not just multi-language, large scale. It's that internal buy-in, making sure you have that, and getting all your teams on board with that, and communicating it sort of well beforehand and briefing everyone.
Okay, excellent. So localization, timing, and getting the team behind the project that you're working on. Localization is actually one of my favorite words right now because I think it's so important when it comes to creating an effective content project. The Content Mix is powered by Vera Content, and Vera Content is a content creation and localization company. And sometimes we work with brands who produce content in Spanish and they publish that content for an audience in Spain and then want to repurpose that content for an audience in Latin America. And although we speak the same language, it's completely different cultures. Our public holidays are different. So, for example, that really is important when it comes to timing your project according to different dates and localizing that project for different markets. Okay, to wrap this section up, Ksenia, if you could do anything in this world, would it still be marketing?
Yeah, it would be. Or maybe a psychologist.
Well, marketing has a big element of psychology in it, right? Because we're basically measuring the pulse of society.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, moving into our next section of our interview, it's basically our rapid fire question. So it's your advice, your recommendations for our audience. Let's talk about a resource that you use in your daily activities. So, for example, an event that you love to attend, either online or in person, a community that you find to be particularly valuable, a book, a publication, stuff like that.
In terms of content and kind of marketing content, I read Marketing Week on a regular basis, and I find it's a good source of sort of current knowledge and staying up to date for marketeers. And their content writers, they have quite a direct and non-nonsense approach, so I quite like that. A book, there's just so many books out there, it's really hard to really think of one. For me, an all-time favorite book would be Dale Carnegie's How to Make Friends and Influence People. And it's a very old one, but still very much stands. And because, whether it's personal or professional life, it's all about relationships and communications. So, he speaks exactly to that. And then also Seth Godin books. They're good. Good for marketers.
Yeah, I'm going to have to add all of those books to my reading list, which is getting really long. Okay, Ksenia, what about skills? What skills would you look for in a new hire?
Certainly. I mean, marketeers have a different variety of skills. But certainly number one, I would say, would be good communicator. That's very important. Number two, attention to detail, being a people's person, being genuine and authentic, having an open mind. I'd say these are the main ones because everything else, all of the very specific skills, they'll come later and they are really not what makes you the most successful. You can learn all the others, but I think, some core skills is very important that we have those.
Oh gosh, you just actually described my ideal candidate. So I completely agree with you. Okay, and to wrap this section up, and also the last question of today's interview, it's what's your favorite app at the moment and why?
Okay, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's Wrike, WRIKE, and I don't get paid for promoting that, but it's it's certainly a tool that we in our marketing team we use increasingly more, and it's being adopted by other teams. But it's a project management tool, and for us, it's our calendar. It's a project management tool. It's it's a Bible I live by. So anything that we execute and collaborate on within a team, it's all in Wrike.
Excellent. So it saves you a lot of time.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Very interesting. So it's like a one-stop shop type of tool.
Absolutely. It's a Bible we live by.
Well, Ksenia, thank you so much for joining us today on the Content Mix. It was awesome to meet you and to learn about IDeaS revenue solutions and to pick your brain on so many other different topics as well.
Thank you very much for having me, Carlota. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And to everybody listening in today, thank you for joining us on the Content Mix. For more perspectives on the content marketing industry in Europe, check out the Content Mix. We'll be releasing interviews just like this one every day, so keep on tuning in. Thanks again. Have a fantastic day and see you next time. Bye.